Night fell like a heavy curtain over the city when Lauren pushed through the office building's revolving door. The cold street air hit her face, but it wasn't the wind that made her hesitate on the sidewalk. It was the feeling. That primal, visceral sensation every animal gets when they're being watched. She adjusted her purse strap on her shoulder and started walking. The financial district streets were empty at this hour. The executives had left hours ago, and the restaurants hadn't opened for dinner yet. It was the quietest moment of the night, that dangerous interval between day and darkness. Lauren knew this route well. 7 blocks to the subway station. Always the same 7 blocks. But tonight was different. She heard the footsteps behind her on the 3rd block. Steady. Constant. Maintaining the same distance. Lauren picked up her pace. The footsteps behind her accelerated too. Her heart started beating faster. She clutched her purse against her body and thought through her options. Go back to the office. Impossible. It was locked. Duck into a store? All closed? Run? Rod closed, run. Thought through her options. Go back to the office. Thought through was locked. Took through her options. Impossible. It was locked. Duck into a store. All closed. Runced her body. Thought through no obedience. What if he ran faster? Don't look back, she thought. If you look, he'll know you're afraid. But the fear was already there, growing like a cold wave climbing up her spine. Lauren turned left onto a side street. Testing. The footsteps turned with her. She swallowed hard and turned again. This time right. The footsteps continued behind her, always at the same distance, like a shadow that didn't need light to exist. He's following me on purpose. The realization came with a shiver. It wasn't paranoia. It wasn't coincidence. Someone was really following her, and that someone wasn't trying to hide it. Lauren thought about grabbing her phone, but her hands were shaking. Thought about screaming, but the street was empty. Thought about running, but her legs felt pinned to the ground by an invisible weight. That's when she realized she'd made a mistake. In trying to lose whoever was following her, Lauren had moved away from the main route. Now she was on a narrow street, poorly lit, lined with closed commercial buildings and iron gates. She was alone, and whoever was behind her knew it. The footsteps stopped. Lauren stopped too, her heart pounding so loud she was certain he could hear it. The silence was worse than the footsteps, much worse. She took a deep breath, trying to gather courage to look back, when she heard something else. More footsteps. Not the same ones as before. These were different, heavier, coming from the opposite direction. Lauren slowly turned her head and saw 2 figures emerging from the shadows ahead. 2 men. Large, dark coats. Hands in pockets. Lauren, right? One of their voices was too calm for the context. We need to talk to you. She took a step back but bumped into something solid. A body. Lauren spun around and saw the man who had followed her here. He was tall, broad-shouldered, hands hidden in the pockets of a black overcoat. His face was partially covered by the shadow of a hat brim. She was surrounded. Sebastian, tall, 6'3", thick, slightly wavy dark brown hair kept short at the sides, piercing almost black eyes with a cold edge, warm olive to tan skin tone, sharp masculine features with a permanent hint of danger, athletic build with broad shoulders. Usually dressed in dark tailored suits that amplify his intimidating presence, posture calm yet unmistakably dominant. Lauren, average height, 5'5", long wavy dark brown hair, deep warm brown eyes, medium to dark skin tone with a natural golden undertone, graceful yet weary posture. Simple professional outfits in neutral earth tones, a quiet strength beneath her softness. The city, Chicago night. Skyscrapers reflecting gold and blue lights, rain-wet streets shimmering, cold air, soft urban noise, elegant sense of loneliness. What do you want? Lauren's voice came out shakier than she would have liked. Just to talk, said the man in front of her, taking a step in her direction. You have something that belongs to very important people, and they want it back. Lauren felt her blood freeze. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you do. He smiled. But there was nothing friendly in that smile. The files. You took them from the office last night. The fear transformed into panic. Lauren really had taken some documents home. It was normal work, nothing illegal. But if these men knew about it... I didn't. Don't lie. The man interrupted, now less than 6 feet from her. It'll be easier for everyone if you just give us what you took. Lauren looked around, desperate. The street was empty. No one to help, no one to witness. What if I scream? She tried, knowing it was useless. No one will hear, he answered calmly. And I really don't want things to get unpleasant. That's when the man behind Lauren spoke for the first time. His voice was low, controlled, but carried a weight that made everyone else stop in place. Leave, now. The authority in those 2 words was absolute. The man in front of Lauren frowned and looked at the figure behind her. This isn't your business, he said, but there was a new hesitation in his voice. It is. The answer came calm, almost indifferent. She's my business. Lauren felt the man behind her move, not to touch her, but to stand beside her. It was only when he stepped completely out of the shadow that she could see him properly. He was younger than she'd imagined. Maybe early 30s. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. There was something in the way he moved, controlled, precise, dangerous. And then she saw the recognition in the eyes of the 2 men in front of her. It wasn't fear. It was something worse. It was forced respect. You, one of them said, his voice lower now. We didn't know she was. Now you know. The man beside Lauren interrupted. And you're leaving before I change my mind about letting you go. There was a pause. For a second, Lauren thought they would back down. But then the first man took another step forward. With all due respect, we have orders. And those orders don't include letting her go just because you showed up. The man beside Lauren didn't respond immediately. He just took his hands out of his overcoat pockets slowly, and Lauren saw something gleam under the weak streetlight. It wasn't a weapon. It was worse, it was a message. Your orders, he said calmly, just changed. The air became heavier. Lauren could feel the tension materializing around them, as if the space between them was charged with something invisible and lethal. The 2 men exchanged glances. And then, without saying another word, they turned and left, disappearing into the same darkness they'd emerged from. Lauren stood frozen, breath caught, body rigid. The man beside her waited until the footsteps completely disappeared. Then he turned to her. Are you okay? Lauren blinked. Was she okay? She'd just been cornered by 2 men who wanted, what? Documents? Her life? And now she was alone on an empty street with a 3rd man who had made the others flee with just 3 sentences. Who are you? She asked, and it was impressive how her voice managed to come out steady. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at the street behind her, as if still assessing something. Then, finally, his eyes met hers. Someone who won't let anything happen to you. The answer was simultaneously reassuring and terrifying. That doesn't answer my question. I know. Lauren felt irritation growing over the fear. You were following me. Why? Because I knew they'd try this. Try what? To get to you. The evasive answers were starting to frustrate her. Who are they? And why the hell should I trust you? He tilted his head slightly, as if genuinely considering the question. You shouldn't. Lauren blinked. What? Trust me, he said simply. You shouldn't. But you'll need to. Before she could respond, he took a step back and gestured in the opposite direction. Walk, I'll follow. Follow? The same way you were doing when you scared me half to death? For the first time, something like amusement passed through his eyes. That wasn't my intention. Well, you succeeded. I noticed. Lauren crossed her arms, trying to appear more confident than she felt. I'm not going anywhere until you tell me who you are. He observed her for a long moment. There was something almost calculating in the way he studied her, as if measuring exactly how much he could or should reveal. My name is Sebastian. Lauren waited for more, but he said nothing. Sebastian, she repeated. Just Sebastian. For now. And what exactly are you, Sebastian? A cop? Private security? A bodyguard I didn't hire? He almost smiled. Almost. None of those. Then what? Sebastian took a step toward her, and Lauren instinctively backed away. He stopped immediately, as if he knew exactly the effect he had. Someone who has an interest in keeping you alive, he said calmly. And if you really want to understand what's happening, you need to start walking. Because those two may have left, but others will come. And next time, I might not be this close. Lauren felt a chill. You're telling me I'm in danger. No, Sebastian corrected. I'm telling you that you always were. You just didn't know it. Lauren stood in the middle of the empty street, processing everything that had just happened. Men chasing her. A stranger who appeared out of nowhere. Threats. Secrets. And now this man Sebastian was telling her that her life had been in danger without her even knowing. She watched Sebastian with distrust as he maintained that relaxed but alert posture. There was something disturbing about his calm, as if situations like this were just another Tuesday night. I should call the police, she said, but her hand didn't move toward her phone. You should, he agreed. But you won't. And how do you know? Because you're smart enough to realize that if the police could help, those men wouldn't have been so confident. Lauren hated that he was right. So what do you suggest? She asked, her tone loaded with defensive sarcasm. That I just trust the mysterious stranger who appeared out of nowhere. No, Sebastian answered seriously. I suggest you be smart enough to recognize when someone just saved your life. The silence that followed was dense. Lauren wanted to argue, wanted to scream, wanted to go back in time and never leave the office. But deep down, she knew he was right. What did they want? She finally asked, her voice lower. Those documents. I don't even know what's in them. They're just boring corporate contracts. Sebastian observed her with that unreadable expression. You really believe that? Double quotes. Lauren hesitated. Actually, she hadn't read everything. She'd just taken them home to review because her boss had asked. It was standard procedure, nothing major, or was it? Where are the documents now? Sebastian asked. In my purse. He extended his hand. Give them to me. Lauren backed away instinctively. No way. Lauren, you don't know me, I don't know you. And you want me to just hand over the files that could cost me my life? Sebastian lowered his hand but didn't take his eyes off her. You're right not to trust. But you're wrong to think you have a choice. There's always a choice. Not when you're in this game. What game? Lauren almost shouted, frustration finally exploding. I'm not in any game. I work in auditing. I review boring papers all day. There's nothing in my life that justifies this. Sebastian took a step toward her, and this time Lauren didn't back away. Your office is laundering money for 3 different criminal organizations, he said calmly. The documents you took contain evidence that could dismantle operations worth billions. And now, every person involved in that scheme knows you have that evidence. Lauren felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. This is crazy. It's the truth. How do you know? Sebastian didn't respond. And in his silence, Lauren understood something that made her freeze inside. He didn't just know about the documents. He knew because he was involved. You're part of this, she whispered. You're one of them. No, he said. And for the first time there was something like emotion in his voice. I'm not one of them. I'm worse. Lauren should have run. Should have screamed. Should have done anything except stand there frozen, staring at this man who had just admitted being part of the world that wanted to destroy her. But she did none of that. Because there was something in his eyes, something she couldn't decipher. But that prevented her from simply turning her back. Why did you help me? She asked. Sebastian was silent for so long that Lauren thought he wouldn't answer. But then, he said, because you shouldn't be involved in this. And because I don't let innocent people pay for dirty games. How convenient, Lauren shot back, sarcastic. The criminal with a conscience. Never said I had a conscience, he replied. Said I have rules. And what's the difference? Conscience makes you feel guilty. Rules keep you alive. Lauren didn't know what to say. There was a disturbing logic to that, a brutal honesty that was simultaneously repulsive and strangely respectable. So, what happens now? She asked. Now, Sebastian looked at the dark street behind her. I take you home, and tomorrow we deal with the rest. We? You think you can handle this alone? Lauren wanted to say yes. Wanted to believe she could just go to the police, hand over everything, and return to her normal life. But she knew, deep down she knew, that option had ceased to exist the moment she took those documents. Okay, she said finally, but if you try anything, I won't. How can I be sure? Sebastian looked into her eyes, and for the first time Lauren saw something like sincerity in that controlled expression. Because if I wanted to hurt you, he said calmly, you'd already be dead. It was the most terrifying and, strangely, most honest answer he could have given. And that's exactly why Lauren believed him. Lauren stood frozen on the empty street, her mind racing through impossible scenarios. Men hunting her. A stranger who controlled situations with just his presence. Secrets buried in corporate files. And now this man Sebastian offering protection that felt as dangerous as the threat itself. If you're listening to this and want to know how this story ends, the narration seems to whisper in the shadows. Subscribe to the channel. Because every story here is a door into a world where danger and desire walk side by side. And Lauren and Sebastian have so much more to reveal. The question wasn't whether she could trust him. The question was whether she could afford not to. Lauren's apartment was in an old Brooklyn building, the kind of place that had film noir charm but questionable plumbing. Sebastian insisted on going up with her, and Lauren didn't have the energy to argue. When she opened the door, the first thing she noticed was the wrong silence. It wasn't the normal silence of an empty apartment. It was the silence of a place that had been violated. Sebastian noticed too. He gently pushed her back and entered first, moving through the space with calculated precision. Lauren followed and felt her stomach turn. Her living room was destroyed. Cushions torn, books thrown on the floor, drawers opened. Someone had ransacked every inch of the place. They got here first, she whispered, her voice breaking. Sebastian said nothing. He walked through the apartment, checking every room, every corner. When he returned, his expression was even more closed off. You can't stay here. This is my apartment, and they know that. If they come back, I'll call the police. Lauren. Sebastian approached, and for the first time she saw something close to urgency in his eyes. The police can't protect you, not from these people. But you can? Yes. The answer came so fast, so certain, that Lauren didn't know how to react. How? Because they respect me. And because no one will risk war with me over you. Lauren blinked. War? Sebastian ran a hand through his hair. A rare gesture of frustration. You really don't understand who I am, do you? You said you were Sebastian. Just that. He looked at her for a long moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. Then finally, my full name is Sebastian Volkov. And in the world these people come from, that name means something. Lauren felt something cold slide down her spine. Volkov. She'd heard that name before. Read it in articles, whispered in bar conversations about the city's underworld. Use single quotes, double quotes. She couldn't finish the sentence. The head of the organization that controls half the city, he finished for her. Yes. Mafia boss Sebastian was standing in the middle of her destroyed living room, calmly admitting to being one of the most dangerous men on the East Coast. And Lauren should have been terrified. But strangely, the only thing she felt was a disturbing relief, because now everything made sense. The men backing down. The authority in his voice. The way he moved. How he controlled situations. Why are you helping me? She asked again, but this time the question had a different weight. Sebastian didn't answer immediately. He walked to the window and looked at the street below, hands in his pockets. Because you remind me of someone, he said finally, his voice lower. Someone who was also caught in something that wasn't her fault. And I couldn't save that person. Lauren felt something tighten in her chest. Who? Doesn't matter. She's gone. The silence that followed was different from the previous ones. There was pain in it, an old wound that Sebastian carried like an invisible scar. I'm sorry, Lauren said, and it was sincere. He turned to her, and for the first time Lauren saw something human in those cold eyes. Don't be. Just let me make sure you don't have the same fate. And in that moment, something changed. Lauren didn't know what, but she felt it. As if an invisible line had been crossed, a silent understanding established. Where will I stay? She asked. With me. Lauren opened her mouth to protest, but he raised his hand. I have a safe apartment. Guarded. No one will get near you there. Sebastian, I can't. You can. And you will. He approached but maintained respectful distance. Because if you stay here, they come back. And next time, it won't just be to look for papers. Lauren swallowed hard. She knew he was right. But the idea of going with him, of putting her life completely in the hands of a man who had just admitted to being a mafia boss. I don't trust you, she said. I know, he replied. But you trust your instincts. And your instincts are telling you I'm your best shot. Lauren hated that he was right again. Okay, she said finally. But just until I figure out what to do. Sebastian nodded. Fair. As Lauren packed some things in a backpack, she couldn't help but think about how her life had turned upside down in a matter of hours. She'd left for work this morning thinking about reports and deadlines. Now she was going to live with a mafia boss. And the most disturbing part? She felt safer with him than she had all day. Lauren zipped up her bag and looked around her violated apartment one last time. Everything familiar suddenly felt foreign, contaminated by the reality she'd been thrust into. Ready? Sebastian's voice came from the doorway. No, she said honestly. But I don't think that matters. It doesn't, he agreed, but there was something almost gentle in his tone. But for what it's worth, you're handling this better than most would. Is that supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be the truth. Lauren picked up her bag and walked toward him. As she passed through the doorway, she paused. Sebastian? Yeah? Those men ... will they come after me again? He was quiet for a moment, and Lauren appreciated that he didn't immediately lie to make her feel better. They'll try, he said finally. But they won't succeed. How can you be so sure? Sebastian's eyes met hers, and there was something absolutely certain in them. Because I don't lose what's mine to protect. The possessive phrasing should have alarmed her. Should have sent every warning bell ringing. But instead, it made her feel something she hadn't felt since this nightmare began. Safe. Sebastian's apartment was exactly what Lauren expected. Luxurious, minimalist, and intimidating. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Furniture that probably cost more than her car. And security she couldn't see but knew was there. You can stay in the guest room, Sebastian said, pointing to a hallway. It has everything you need. If you need anything, I'll be in the study. Lauren nodded but didn't move. There was something she needed to ask. Why are you really doing this? Sebastian looked at her, and for the first time she saw hesitation in him. I told you. No, Lauren interrupted. You gave me an answer. But it wasn't the complete truth. He was silent, and Lauren thought he would just ignore the question. But then he approached, stopping a few steps away. Because when I first saw you 3 weeks ago, leaving that office, you smiled at the security guard. He dropped some papers and you stopped, helped him pick them up and smiled. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Lauren blinked, surprised. You've been following me for 3 weeks? Since I discovered your office was involved in money laundering, yes. And you decided to protect me because I smiled at a security guard? No, Sebastian said, his voice lower now. I decided to protect you because in this world of lies and betrayals, you were the only genuine thing I'd seen in years. And I won't let that be destroyed. Lauren felt something tighten in her chest. There was brutal sincerity in those words, an honesty that seemed to hurt him as much as it did her. You barely know me, she whispered. I know enough. What if I'm not the person you think I am? Sebastian gave a half smile, sad and tired. Then at least I'll have tried. The silence between them was charged with something neither of them could name. Lauren knew she should step away, should maintain distance from this dangerous man who had invaded her life. But when she looked into his eyes, all she saw was exhaustion and loneliness. And an old pain she recognized because she carried something similar. Thank you, she said finally. For saving me. Don't thank me yet, Sebastian replied. This is far from over. I know. He nodded and turned to leave, but Lauren caught his arm. Sebastian? He stopped looking at where she touched his wrist. It was the first intentional touch between them. You said I remind you of someone you couldn't save, she said slowly. But I'm not her. I'm still here. And you are saving me. Something passed through his eyes. Something deep and dangerous and, at the same time, extraordinarily fragile. I hope so, he said simply. And then he pulled away, disappearing down the hallway, leaving Lauren alone with her thoughts. She looked around the luxurious apartment, processing everything that had happened. 12 hours ago, she was just an ordinary auditor with a predictable life. Now she was under the protection of the most dangerous man in the city. And, the scariest part? She didn't want to be anywhere else. Lauren walked to the window and looked at the city below. The lights blinked like fallen stars, each representing lives, stories, choices. She had made her choice when she decided to trust Sebastian. Not because she believed he was good, but because she believed he was honest about being dangerous. And in this world where everyone wore masks, there was something liberating about being next to someone who didn't pretend to be what he wasn't. The night deepened outside, the city's pulse visible in the flow of traffic and scattered light. Lauren pressed her forehead against the cool glass and wondered what tomorrow would bring. More danger. More questions, definitely. But also, perhaps more answers. And strangely, the thought didn't terrify her as much as it should have. Because for the first time in hours, she wasn't alone in this nightmare. She had an ally. Even if that ally was the most dangerous man she'd ever met. Lauren couldn't sleep. She lay in the guest room's luxurious bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day's events in her mind. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those men's faces, heard their threats, felt the terror of being surrounded. And then she saw Sebastian. The way he'd appeared like some dark guardian, dispersing danger with nothing but his presence and a few carefully chosen words. Who was he really? Not the surface answer Mafia boss, dangerous man, controller of criminal empires. That was obvious now. But who was Sebastian beneath all that? The man who'd been following her for 3 weeks to protect her. The man who'd lost someone and was trying to prevent the same fate for a stranger. The man who carried loneliness like a second shadow. Around 2 a.m., Lauren gave up on sleep and quietly left the room. The apartment was dark except for a sliver of light under one door. The study. She shouldn't approach. Should go back to bed. Mind her own business, but her feet carried her forward anyway. Lauren knocked softly. Sebastian? Come in. She opened the door and found him sitting behind a massive desk, surrounded by papers and documents. He'd removed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves. For the first time he looked almost human. Can't sleep? He asked, not looking up from whatever he was reading. No. Lauren stepped into the room. What are you doing? Figuring out how to keep you alive. The blunt honesty startled her. Is it that bad? Sebastian finally looked up, and the weight in his eyes answered before his words did. Those documents you took, they implicate people I can't just threaten into backing off. Important people. Connected people. People like you. Worse than me, he said. I have rules. Lines I won't cross. They don't. Lauren moved closer to the desk. What happens to me if you can't fix this? That's not an option. But what if... Lauren. Sebastian stood coming around the desk. I don't fail. Not at this. Not with you. Why me? She asked, and this time she needed the real answer. Don't give me the thing about the security guard or reminding you of someone. Why are you putting yourself at risk for a woman you don't even know? Sebastian was quiet for so long that Lauren thought he wouldn't answer. Then he moved to the window, looking out at the sleeping city. 6 years ago I made a choice, he said, his voice different, vulnerable in a way she hadn't heard before. My sister was dating a man who worked for one of my competitors. I didn't know he was using her to get information about my operations. By the time I figured it out, it was too late. They killed her to send me a message. Lauren's breath caught. Sebastian, I was so focused on my empire, on maintaining power, that I didn't see what was right in front of me," he continued. "She was innocent, completely uninvolved in this world. And she died because of my choices. That wasn't your fault, wasn't it?" He turned to face her. "I brought this life into her orbit. I made her a target just by being her brother." Lauren understood now. The protective instinct, the determination, the way he'd appeared in her life like an avenging angel. "I'm not your sister," she said gently. "No," Sebastian agreed. "But you're another innocent person caught in a web you didn't spin. And this time, I'm not looking away. This time, I save who needs saving." Lauren moved closer until she was standing directly in front of him. "You can't save everyone." "Maybe not," he said. "But I can save you." The certainty in his voice should have felt arrogant. Instead, it felt like a promise carved in stone. "What if saving me costs you everything?" Lauren asked. "Then it costs me everything." "Sebastian, you don't understand," he interrupted, his eyes intense. "In my world, everything has a price. Power, loyalty, survival. I've paid prices that would break most people. But this protecting you, this is the first thing I've done in years that feels like it matters." Lauren felt tears threaten. "I'm just an auditor who took the wrong files home." "No," Sebastian said softly. "You're someone who helped a security guard pick up papers, who smiled at strangers, who exists in this city without adding to its darkness. Do you know how rare that is?" "You're romanticizing." "I'm stating facts." He reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Lauren, I've spent 6 years becoming the thing I needed to be to survive, and I'm good at it. But I'd forgotten what it felt like to protect something instead of just controlling it." Lauren's heart was racing. They were standing too close. The moment was too intimate. Everything about this was dangerous, but she didn't step away. "So what happens now?" she whispered. "Now I make sure those documents get to the right people. People who can use them without putting you in the crossfire." "And after?" Sebastian's expression became unreadable again. "After, you go back to your life. And you?" "I go back to mine." The words hung between them like a barrier neither wanted but both knew had to exist. "What if I don't want to go back?" Lauren heard herself say. Sebastian's eyes darkened. "Lauren, I'm not saying I want to be part of your world," she clarified. "I'm saying, after this is over, I don't want to just forget you existed." "You should," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "But I won't." They stood there, caught in that impossible moment where truth and desire collided with reality. Finally, Sebastian stepped back, breaking the spell. "You should get some sleep," he said. "Tomorrow's going to be difficult." Lauren knew she was being dismissed. Knew he was putting distance between them for reasons that probably made sense in his dangerous world. But as she walked to the door, she paused and looked back. "Sebastian? Yeah? Thank you. Not just for saving me, for seeing me." Something flickered in his expression, surprise, maybe, or recognition. "Get some rest, Lauren." She nodded and left, closing the door softly behind her. Back in the guest room, Lauren lay down and stared at the ceiling again. But this time, her thoughts were different. She thought about a man who'd built walls so high he'd forgotten what it felt like to let someone in. She thought about choices made in the name of protection that had cost him everything that mattered. She thought about how, in trying to save her, he might be saving himself too. Outside, the city continued its eternal dance of light and shadow. And inside the guarded apartment, 2 broken people tried to figure out if protection could become something more. If danger and safety could coexist in the same space. If a mafia boss and an auditor could find redemption in each other's choices. The answer was still unwritten. But for the first time in 6 years, Sebastian let himself hope. And for the first time in 12 hours, Lauren felt something other than fear. She felt possibility. Between danger and protection lies an invisible line where fear transforms into trust. And when Lauren crossed that line beside Mafia boss Sebastian, she discovered that sometimes the most dangerous person in the world is exactly who you need to feel safe.